week's Parshas, Pinchas, something very nice from the Rebbe's father, Rabbi Levi Yitzchok Zatzal. Before I start with something beautiful of the Parsha, I would just like to mention that many times in our videos we share interesting numerical values, gematrioris, and people think that the Rebbe's father was just a interesting, how things fit numerically. And this is a big mistake, because the real truth is that the Rebbe's father has an explanation, explains the verses or medrash, and then he shows how that meaning and that explanation also fits with gematria. It's not just gematria. I will give you a simple example of this week's parsha. This week's parsha starts with Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. Pinchas was the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron HaKohen, and all Mefarshim ask, Rashi brings it down right away. Why does it have to say the lineage of Pinchas? We know it already from earlier Parshas and Parshas of Vayera. So there's some connection over here between Pinchas and Aaron. Now, the Rabbi Levi brings down that the Zohar in this week's Parsha says that the way you write the letters of Pinchas, most people just write Pei Nun Ches Samach. But the Zohar says we should write it Pei Yud Ches. Pei Yud Nun Ches Samach. Pinchas with a Yud. And the Zohar explains that after the whole story of the sacrifice that Pinchas stood up for the respect of Hashem with his zealousy, Kino Lelekov, like it says in this week's Parsha, and he was rewarded with the whole story with Zimri. He became a Kohen. Through that, he got the letter Yud, which the Zohar explains. Comes Rabbi Yitzchok and says something very beautiful. He says if you take the name Pinchas with the Yud, Pei Yud Nun Chesamach adds up to 208. 208 is exactly the same gematria as Yitzchok, Yud Tzadek Cheskov. So explains Rabbi Yitzchok so beautiful. Yitzchok, we know, was Ben Avraham. And here the pasuk is saying Pinchas comes from Aaron. There's a correlation, a connection between these two. In Chassidus it explains, and the Rebbe brings it down in many Mamorim, Lekutei Sichos, in many places, that Avraham Avinu was known, Avraham Oyavi, he was Midas HaChesed, very kind, that we see he gave to guests food and everything, he reached out, he was a very kind person, Midas HaChesed. Yitzchok was just the opposite, Midas HaGvura, severity, strongness. But the Eibishter made that there should be, like it says in Parshas, told us, Avram ben Yitzchok, Yitzchok ben Avram hoiled as Yitzchok. There should be a hiskalalus, a blend between Avram and Yitzchok, and that happened through the Akedah, which says Vayechu Shneim Yachdav. They went together. Each one learned from each other and developed each other's midah. So Yitzchok had a combination of Chesed and Gvura. Yankiv and Avram Binu also. He absorbed the Yira, the severity, the Gvura of Yitzchok. And every person Hashem wants, he should have these two. Sometimes we have to show kindness, Ava, and then sometimes we have to show Gvura. It's not a contradiction. And in general, Dr. Rebbe says in Tanya, Chesed symbolizes the mitzvahs aseh, Yira, Gvura symbolizes the mitzvahs lo yisaseh. We have to be very strong to not to transgress, etc. And this is the connection over here, said Rabbi Yitzchok, between Pinchas with a Yud, add up to Yitzchok, to tell you that by Pinchas, Hashem blessed him with the same way. Just like by Yitzchok. Yitzchok came from Avraham Avinu. There was this blend and the scholarless, the working together of the Chesed and Gvura together, the Avraham and Yitzchok. Same thing, Pinchas, Ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, the connection of Pinchas and Aaron. Pinchas, as it says in this week's Parsha, he was a man of zealousy, of kina, which shows of Gvura. But then Hashem wanted to show that also he has been Aaron HaKohen. Aaron was known, he was full of love. and he reached out to make peace with everyone, and he was Ahava, as we spoke many, many times. That's what a Kohen is, and that's what Chesed was, the midah of Aaron a Kohen. So the Eibishter want to show Pinchas and Aaron coming together, Gvura and Chesed. A person should have the blend of both, and that's why he adds up to Yitzchok to teach you this idea. Another beautiful concept, says Rabbi Yitzchok, in this connection of the letter Yud, that's Pinchas, adds up to Yitzchok, 208. He says, if you in the Zohar it says this week's Parshas 2, and in many places that we know that Aaron HaKohen had 4 sons, Nadav Avihu and Elazar v'Isamar. Unfortunately, Nadav Avihu, on the first day, Chodesh Nisan, when they dedicated the Mishkan, they went into the Holy of Holies to do a service of incense, and unfortunately they died. The Zohar says that Pinchas, through this great Mesiras Nefesh, he saved the Jewish people, but he stood up for the kavod and the honor and with zealousy for the honor of Hashem, Kinei Lelakov. He was blessed that in him was reincarnated a Gilgul, the neshama from Nadav Avihu, came into Pinchas. And the Rebbe explains this in many, many places. Actually, the first time that the Rebbe spoke after he became a Rebbe in Tafshin Yud, Parshas Pinchas, you can look it up. The Rebbe spoke about this idea in many, many places. So in Pinchas came the neshama of Nadav Avihu, which means that now Aaron, who had 4 sons, all of his 4 sons were elevated in the proper way. Elazar v'Isamar was living and they did the service. But Nadav Avihu, who died young, and so to say they didn't complete their work in this world, now they were reincarnated into the guf, into the body of, reborn again, so to say, into the body of Pinchas, and they had a tikkun. They came to elevate, they were elevated and came to the proper place where they had to be in this world, this physical world, to do what they needed to do. This, says Rabbi Levi, so beautiful, is hinted in the name Pinchas with a Yud. Pei Yud Nun. Chasam Pinchas adds up to 208, we said before. 208 adds up to 4 times Ben. Ben 52. 52 times 4, 208, to teach you that now with this Pinchas, through his great Mesiras Nefesh in the story of Zimri, he brought that all the 4 sons, 4 times Ben, from Aaron HaKohen, were elevated and brought to that tikkun. Elazar v'Isamar did it on their own. But now, Nadav Avihu was reincarnated in the guf of Pinchas, and through that, all the 4 sons of Aaron HaKohen had reached to the tikkun, and that's why it's so beautiful how all this is connected. Hashem wanted to show Pinchas wasn't only a person of zealousy, he had also Ben Aaron, he had together the mixture, the blend of Chesed and Gvura. That's why this is a lesson for every single person. That you also, every person should have a feeling of Chesed, but sometimes we have to have Gvura. And just like the Rebbe explains, we have mitzvahs hasei, mitzvahs lo yisaseh. A Jew has that blend, the mixture together, and then he becomes complete as Hashem wants.